Brooke Baldwin in for Eburnett. Out front tonight, breaking news. The lawyers for George Zimmerman, the man who shot and killed 17-year-old Trayvon Martin, say they are no longer communicating with their client. And in a very bizarre and strange and, might I add, surprising news conference this afternoon, the lawyers say they're dropping George Zimmerman.
I still believe that he was acting in self-defense that night. Nothing that I've said about him or this case has changed in any way. I just can't proceed to represent a client who doesn't stay in contact with me.
Craig Sonner and Hal Uhrig say the last time they spoke to the volunteer neighborhood watchman, it was just this past Sunday, and that he's no longer answering their calls. But as of 1:30 p.m. Eastern today, George Zimmerman did update his website, posting a statement that claims his innocence and seeks donations to his defense fund. Let me read the statement for you. He is writing here, quote, "I am attempting to respond to each and every one of my supporters personally. The support has been overwhelming in volume and strength." He goes on, "I thank you all and ask that you permit me the time to respond to each one of you personally. Once again, thank you." George Zimmerman shot and killed 17-year-old Trayvon Martin back on February 26 and claims it was in self-defense. Martin's family says he's racially profiled their son and demands his arrest. I want to bring in Roland Martin and Paul Callan here to talk a little bit more about this, what fill in the adjective, shocking, surprising, bizarre news conference held on behalf of these two attorneys. Let me begin with you. Have you ever in your career, Paul Callan, heard of this happening? They're saying essentially they haven't been in contact with their client, so done.
It's utterly and completely bizarre, although I must say I have heard of it happening. Usually the lawyer says to the judge, there's a missing witness in the case, Mr. Green, all right? The lawyer hasn't been paid, and therefore he's withdrawing from the case. And I'm betting in this case, because he started a website, he's raising money, he's never even met with these lawyers, so I don't think they're being paid, and I think as a result of that, they're dropping out of the case, waiting for the big gun to come in to represent Zimmerman.
So you think there's a big gun to come?
I think you'll see somebody well-known probably step into the case and assume representation at some point in the very, very near future. I don't know who that is, but that's what it's looking like to me.
And I'll tell you, when I was in Orlando a couple of weeks ago, I talked to several different attorneys, and they said that major lawyers down there have been waiting and salivating at the opportunity.
So they're
to get
swarming,
in
they're
this case.
salivating.
Absolutely.
Interesting.
And in this case, I mean, he's never physically met with these lawyers.
Never physically met with the lawyers. And I believe when they said today, the last time they were in communication with George Zimmerman was Sunday, that might have even been via text message.
It's not even just them. Coming to the studio, I called Joe Oliver, his friend who's been all over television.
Who's been defending George Zimmerman.
Right. He hasn't talked to George in 2 weeks. He said, quote, "I feel like he is wrongly being advised." He also said that he's making some bad decisions. He said, quote, I am comfortable in saying that the authorities know where he's at if they need to get to him. He also talked about the flight risk because Ben Crump, the attorney for Trayvon Martin's family, said the family is concerned he could be a flight risk. Joe said he doesn't have the funds to be a flight risk. But then he also went on to make it perfectly clear that I sent him a text today saying you're making some bad decisions and said it's not going to work in your favor. And Joe said one of the reasons he hasn't been on television because he doesn't want to keep rehashing the same thing, but also he said I can't represent him as a friend, as a media advisor, if he won't even talk to me. He's talked to his father a week ago, hasn't talked to George Zimmerman in 2 weeks.
So Joe Oliver sent George Zimmerman this text today. Did he get anything? Crickets?
No. He said he has not gotten a response from him. He hasn't talked to him, or he hasn't returned a text in 2 weeks.
So, Paul Callan, you're saying, and you two are in agreement, that potentially some big gun attorneys are about to swoop in and take in this case. In the meantime, and even though now we're talking about George Zimmerman as a former client of these two gentlemen, was it at all, speaking of ethics, was it unethical for them to come forward and hold this news conference about someone they had been representing, potentially, speaking in a, I don't want to say defamatory way, but in a way that wouldn't perhaps put their client in a nice light?
I have a real problem with the attorneys doing this, and I think they may have an ethical problem because look at the tenor of the entire press conference. First of all, why are they holding a press conference? To say we're not representing him. And when you come away from the press conference, it sounds like Zimmerman's a bit of a flake. He doesn't even talk to his own attorneys. They don't know where he is. I mean, don't you want to be presenting the defense that Zimmerman is a stable human being who made a proper clever but difficult decision to defend himself. Instead, they make him look like a flake. A lawyer is supposed to act to the benefit of the client,
even if this is a former client.
Even if it's a former client. That's why you're just supposed to hold a press conference and say, I'm out of the case. That's what Linda Kenny Baden did when she withdrew from the Casey Anthony case. Bruce Cutler, when he was representing Phil Spector, just said we've had strategic decisions and withdrew. A lot of high-profile cases, lawyers have acted professionally.
How do you have a father who is a judge, a mother who was a clerk in the court? I mean, you come from a legal family, and so you got to be asking the question, where's his family in all of this? You would think that they would be saying, George, sit down, shut up, we know the law, listen to us. And so talking to Joe Oliver, listen to these attorneys, sounds like he's pretty much freelancing out there, and so it certainly makes for just a crazy development.
What do you make of his attorneys also? I mean, at one point they said maybe he's suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder. They mentioned PTSD. They said, hey, he said he's losing a lot of weight. Perhaps he's very unstable. What do you make of that?
You know, when you think about this, you have these attorneys who have never actually met with him. He, by the way, says...
You're still marveling at that fact,
I'm marveling at it, and because he actually made a statement, Zimmerman, saying they're not my attorneys, but they've given me legal counsel. Now, I don't know, that's sort of a mixed message, but nonetheless, for them to say he's suffering from these conditions, I mean, this is the outline of a defense in a criminal case, potentially a murder case. You don't do this. It's not in the client's interest.
Even Joe Oliver said that he has not met with him personally, and so you're saying, wait a minute, you're hearing all of these stories, and you're getting them all on the phone. If I'm somebody's that close friend and I'm an attorney, surely I'm having a face-to-face.
Where is he? And perhaps we can come back and say you called it. Some big dog attorneys are going to swoop in, perhaps. And until then, still so many questions.
Well, if they can find Zimmerman,
if they can find him,
you know, which is really the crazy thing. Getting back to the father being a judge, you know what a judge would say to his son? Sit down with an attorney right now. You're in the middle of this firestorm. Right. Where's Zimmerman?
Gentlemen, stand by. Yep. We're now getting Ben Crump. He is the attorney representing Trayvon Martin's family. I was actually just speaking with them just a short time ago. He joins us now out front tonight. And Mr. Crump, let me begin with the family here, who you've been very closely in touch with, obviously. Were they watching today's news conference, news conference given on behalf of George Zimmerman's attorneys? What was their reaction?
Yes, ma'am. As the lead attorney for the parents of Trayvon Martin and with our other lawyers, we all watched the press conference. And as I told Roland earlier, it was just surprising to us. And after the press conference, his parents turned to me and said, they don't know where this guy is at. And that is the issue. They don't know where the killer of Trayvon Martin is at. He is unaccounted for, and they are really concerned about that because they do worry about him being a flight risk. They worry about if he's ever going to be brought to justice for killing their son.
You know, we hear from Sanford Police. They say they do know where George Zimmerman is, even though he's apparently not exactly in contact with anyone else. Do they buy that, and are they still fearful that despite the fact that police know where he is, he could still flee?
Well, with this sporadic conduct on behalf of George Zimmerman, we think he's a flight risk. We found out today he's not in the state of Florida. The lawyers say they don't think he will leave the country, but again, they haven't met him. As we were telling Roland Martin, we're really concerned about this because how does this impact the prosecution going forward? If he is charges are brought, is he going to face the charges or is he going to flee?
Wait, Mr. Crump,
it's a real troubling matter.
Am I hearing you correctly that you are hearing that he is not in Florida? Is that what you just said?
Yes, we heard that he's not in the state of Florida.
Where are you getting that from?
Well, no, we picked that up from the press conference. They said they know where he's at, but they know where they think he is, but they're not sure.
They're not sure. Let me bring in Paul Callan. Go ahead.
If he's out of the state of Florida, or if there's a danger that he's going to leave the country, this would cause the prosecutor to move much more quickly in lodging charges if that's the direction she's going to go in, because she's got to go to court, get an arrest warrant, and you're going to want to grab him while he's still grabbable. So this could be an important factor that prosecutor Angela Corey would be looking at if he's available.
And to the audience, remember, he's not been arrested. So it's not like he has to be in contact with authorities. He's not under any kind of watch.
Not wearing an ankle bracelet, etc. Mr. Crump,
until a warrant is issued by the court, he's free to go wherever he wants.
Final question to you, sir, Ben Crump, and that is, if George Zimmerman, wherever he is, if he is watching tonight, what message would Trayvon Martin's parents have for him?
Well, the same message they had all along. Why did he shoot and kill their son? Their son was unarmed, trying to get home. And they've always asked that question of George Zimmerman. The only thing they've asked for the police and the state attorney is arrest him so the wheels of justice can start going forward, and a judge and a jury will decide this matter. They only want simple justice, nothing more or nothing less, Aaron.
It's Brooke, but thank you. Ben Crump, thank you. Paul Rowland, gentlemen, thank you. I want to remind everyone, Ben Crump and Trayvon Martin's family will be guests on Piers Morgan tonight. That is 9 p.m. Eastern Time. Do not miss that.